This is the Woodbridge Conservation Commission on May 18th, 2023. The chairperson, Tim Austin, isn't here today, so as the vice chair, Sharon Ducat, I'm leading this meeting. And welcome, everyone. We're going to start with public comments, which I don't think we've received any of. Oh, it's 8:32. 7:32. It's 7:32. Sorry about that. First item on our agenda is public comments, and I don't think any were received. So we'll move on to a guest person who's here named Philip Piscatelli, who's going to do a presentation on the impact of Oriental bittersweet in the Racebrook track and tree growth. And then we will talk about it and decide if we want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen the matter for them to vote on, him doing the project that he's going to present to us. Come on up and tell us your name and where you live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as you said, I'm Philip Piscatelli. I'm a graduate student at the University of New Haven. I'm studying environmental science. So I'm proposing requesting permission for research in Racebrook Tract. So I've already received permission from the Orange Conservation Commission, but I'm asking to receive permission from the Woodbridge Town Commission. So I'll give you a little bit of background. It's not Oriental bittersweet. So it's an invasive vine from Asia. So as an invasive species, it outcompetes native species. So there's some other native vines like Concord grape and American bittersweet, but this species is more voracious, so it outcompetes them. It has thicker foliage, faster growth rates. It can tolerate poor or disturbed conditions, which all make it an invasive species. So as you can see in the pictures here, on the left and the right, top pictures are both from Racebrook Tract. So on the left, I put some arrows. So you can see this is an oak tree, and the vine is going up into the canopy. And then extra weight, not just from the foliage, but from the vine itself, it damages a tree. It can cause like more severity in wind and ice damage because it's extra weight surface area to collect ice. So you can see here this tree on the trunk is split. So that's a bad sign. So this tree is much more prone to infection. It might die. It's hard to tell, but it's definitely not ideal. On the right, you can see the vines going to the canopy of another tree. So there's about like 4 or 5 vines there, and they can get pretty thick. They can get about 4 inches in diameter. So they're pretty thick vines. And then in the bottom, it's just a stock image, but you can see they can girdle a tree so they can cut into the bark to so much that it can actually cut off the flow. So the tree's nutrients flow in the bark. So if it's getting cut off, it's like, if you cut off a limb, right, like shredding of the limb, you lose the sap flow, and that can die. So these are all problems. So my study, I'm trying to determine the effect of Oriental bittersweet on tree growth. I hypothesize it'll be a negative growth. The way I'll determine that is I'll use an incremental borer. So this is an industry standard method. It takes a small core from the tree. It's about the size of a pencil, a number 2 pencil. But with that, you get a lot of information. So you'll be able to not only find out the age of the tree, but you can also measure it in between the growth rings. So you can determine the growth rate of the tree. So then by also coring the vine, so the largest vine's 7 years old, although there's been 7 years since the infestation has occurred, and I can count back 7 years. So then I'll have those 7 years in the tree, be like, okay, this is the growth rate while it was infested, and then I can look back in the past and then see this is the growth rate before it's infested, and then by averaging growth rate per year, I'll determine if the growth rate has increased or decreased. Also, which you'll receive, so like I can give you my report when I'm done. I'll be doing this in the fall research semester. So by December, I'll have my report finished and I'll present to the university. We have to present our research projects. So I'll have that. And then also you receive GPS coordinates for the trees that I've studied. So in case you want to do a management strategy, that you could have somewhere to start.
And if this all works out, you'll give us a report too?
Yes.
So we can benefit from that? I think there was a few, so does anyone have any questions regarding what?
Is this going to be your thesis?
It's not a thesis, but it's it would be like a research project. So you can do thesis or non-thesis. I'm doing non-thesis.
And are there any recommendations? Will you be, you know, is there any plan to cut these vines out or?
Not for me, but like for you guys, I would recommend like removal of the vines. At a certain point, like you can almost like someone's a losing battle if they get too established. But like early reaction is like most invasive species is the key. There's different chemicals online, like the U.S. Forest Service has some recommendations. Like Trichopter is a herbicide that they recommend. So you like make a cut and then you spray like the cut portion with the herbicide. It'll kill the root system. Because a big thing with Oregon bittersweet is one root system can have like 5 to 10 vines. So you can have a lot of vines out of one root system. So if you cut one vine, it's almost like a hydra. It doesn't really care. It'll just send up more vines, or the other vines will get the nutrients. So that can be a problem. So like if you catch it early and destroy the roots and then the plant itself, like it's better for the tree. Unfortunately, that the vine that's already in the tree will stay there until it rots away, unless somebody like climbs the tree and cuts it out, which is unlikely. So that they cause some problems with that. And then obviously, once the bark is damaged with the vine constricting it, the tree's going to try and heal, but that's going to be a entreated disease for the tree.
Do you know if there are any grants to eradicate it? So, for instance, if you identified it, its effect, and it was decided it was beneficial to eradicate it, how would we go about doing that? Are there grants?
So I've looked into grants more for research than like removal. So I'm not sure like exactly removal, but I do know like invasive species are a big problem. There's like plenty of papers about like the impact on like timber production, like agriculture, because there's all kinds of insects, plants. So I don't know like specifically on grants, but like I don't know what kind of funding the town's like allocated. If you get federal funding or something like that for maintenance, I'll look into that.
That would be interesting to know.
I have a note here from Tim Austin that you probably saw. Also, he sent you an email saying there's a few other. If we vote on this, and recommend the board to act on this matter, that the town requires a certificate of insurance,
Yeah, I saw that.
and you to wear a badge if you're on the property, and telling the town of Woodbridge when you're going to be there. Does that all seem like things that are doable?
Yes.
Okay. So I think Tim suggests that we make a motion to decide to recommend, or not recommend, Philip to do his research, and then they'll vote on it. So, does anyone know?
I'd like to make, Barbara, you were about
No.
to say something? I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that he be allowed to do this research.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay.
Good luck to you.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
We'll be very interested to hear what they,
We'll be interested indeed.
I'm glad.
yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.
You
Good night.
too.
I think everyone has a copy of the minutes for April 20th, 2023. Does anyone have any comments of anything they think should be changed or added or deleted?
I'd like to make a clarification.
Kim here.
In
Barbara would like to make a clarification.
the paragraph that starts with my name.
What did I do?
You didn't do anything, really. I just wanted to make sure that it was explicit that first of all, we will, or they, as you say, will work with the commission. Not just will help, but we're not doing this on our own, that we're working with the commission. And that we will be identifying each site that can be put, each different historical site that are near the trails. We're not identifying all the historical sites in town.
So it's the relevant ones that are near
Near trails
that
that we can talk about.
hikers can be informed about.
On the Greenway Trail.
Right.
So do you want to, Kathy, do you want to say what you got from what we just said to you?
Instead of they will work with the commission to identify each historical site near the trails.
Near the Greenway trails? Would you like to put Greenway in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would that change? Does anyone wanna?
And one more thing, it's, each site can be put on the trail maps so that they're not put all over the place. I mean, it's not,
Okay. With those changes, would anyone like to approve the meetings of April 20th, 23?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Great. So the next item is to select a representative to the historical points of interest working group. And, Barbara, you're already a member of that and the spearhead of that. And I understood, Valerie, that you have some interest.
Yes,
So would you like to officially be part of that group?
as it pertains to the trail,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, great. And, Tim was hoping for a third member, but he also thought that he might be a third member if no one else wants to. And Barbara brought up the point that he has some knowledge about QR codes and stuff, and he might be a valuable third member. But if anyone else is wanting to do that, can you let us know now? Okay,
It would be good, I think it would probably would be helpful if Tim has an understanding of the technology to make that happen.
okay.
I think so.
So Valerie and Tim. And I imagine you'll be telling us updates as they go along. So, number 5 is the finalizing the jumping worms program and the details of that. And I think I can probably speak to that. The program is gonna be on May 24th at 7 o'clock at the library. I'm hoping all of us attend it, and we bring whoever else we'd like to.
At 7 PM?
7 PM. I have really no idea of what the attendance will be like, but we've let the Massaro
can-
Farm.
I can insert here that we put the little, I don't know, 3x5
Uh-huh.
of the flyers there on the counter of the, and I'm afraid we're gonna be overwhelmed with people.
Well, that'd be great.
I mean,
Figure it out.
everybody is interested in this. Everybody's
Yeah.
scared, so they're all
Yeah.
interested in it. So
Interesting. Okay, well,
I'm
We'll see.
predicting we'll have a good turnout.
okay.
Great.
That would be great. The more of us who know about it, the better. I, in the flyer, said that we would bring refreshments. So I'm more than willing to make a bunch of refreshments, but I'm wondering if anyone else would like to volunteer to make any refreshments or bring fruit or,
I'll bring some things.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'll bring some things up.
So Sharon,
I'll either, if I have time to
Joy.
make, or I'll just
Barbara.
grab some things at Costco. Maybe cut up some watermelon if there's lots of
Oh,
kids.
that's a great idea.
You know, that kind of thing. I won't get any worms.
I was thinking of gummies we should
I
bring.
know, that
but
would be super cute, but
I thought maybe not, and then start jumping.
it's a very serious subject, as we know.
It is. Okay, so the three of us and anyone else who's so inspired can pick up some oranges or something like that, especially if we're gonna be overrun with people.
Do we have like, napkins or anything like that? Because I'm just thinking of messiness.
Napkins and some paper plates.
Yeah. Like whatever you all bring, we can just bring our own platter or whatever to put it on.
Yeah.
but I
I'll
know
bring
that-
some napkins and paper plates. And, maybe some cups. And some water.
Are we gonna film the meeting? Is it gonna be recorded?
It'd be awesome if it could be.
It would be.
We don't have the facility for doing that, but if somebody can record it.
Someone could just do
Use
a
their
YouTube
phone.
record, just do a phone recording.
It would be
Would
great.
you like
if-
to do that, Paul?
Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to attend. That's why I
Oh.
was curious to see if it was gonna be recorded, because I'd like to hear it, but I won't be able to be there.
Well, Tim has the technology, right?
Does he?
I would assume. That was kind of the business he was in.
Oh gee, I didn't even know. Okay, who would, I'll try to
Should we
ask
just
Tim.
ask Tim?
Let's ask Tim if he can record meeting or presentation. And we should tell Kate Rosen that it's happening too.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, so.
Okay.
But if we could get it up, that's probably something that would be useful, that people will refer back to if it's on YouTube.
Does the Garden Club have a website?
Yes, we have a website.
Okay, maybe it would be something the Garden Club would want to put on their
It was-
website too.
Mentioned in the garden club, and I'll get Kathy to re-mention it.
Right. I don't know whether
She's
the
away
other
right now, so
organizations
that-
that we suggested have been,
I have talked to the community garden, and it's on their email, but it didn't seem like it was that emphasized, and I think people at Massaro Farm know about it, and people at the
the trust.
Land Trust know about it. I think some have already heard this presentation in another place.
Ah,
So it's Arts Week at Beecher, and they're doing their pollinator pathway garden project too, but they have the flyer. I don't know how well circulated, once, it got, but I know kids are really interested in it too, so. Have you seen any, has there been any spotted at the gardens that you
Any?
know of?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of. Yeah. Okay, is any other comments on this? I don't think so Barbara and Joy and I are bringing some food. And we're gonna see if it's gonna be recorded. I'll get in touch with Kate and Kathy Wick and Tim. And bring napkins and paper plates at least. Okay, anything else anyone can think of that would be helpful for this?
It's only from 7 to 8?
It might go a little over since Barbara can keep the library open a little bit longer.
Okay.
I'm the late closer.
She's
over
got
here.
keys.
She's got
She has the
keys.
keys.
More important, I have the code.
Aha. Okay. The next item is the tree preservation proposal. Who's gonna speak to that? Or if there's anything to say about that?
We met.
Yes.
Go
Go
Barbara,
ahead.
did you want to? We met a couple weeks ago, and we met with Chris Sullivan to discuss, where it might fit, how it might work. And one of the things that was new from our meeting is, too bad Diana's not here to talk to this, but the idea of perhaps doing a survey in terms of what people would like to see in a tree preservation regulation. And so Diana was going to be investigating that. I guess the town has a subscription to a survey service. It's like an online service, I don't even recall what it was called,
It's
but
like
it
a
can't
Survey
remember.
Monkey type of thing?
it's SurveyMonkey,
It
yeah.
is,
I think
yeah.
that's what it was. And so the idea was we could perhaps do a survey to figure out what people thought was of interest to them in terms of a tree ordinance, what things it should cover, and how it might work. So that was something new that came up in our meeting. Chris Sullivan expressed that there weren't resources in town at this point to enforce it. So that was something that we were going to take into consideration in terms of what we recommended.
Okay.
Also, Diana saw, heard, found that Branford is doing an ordinance and passed the ordinance on to us if anybody wants to
Oh, right,
see
very
or
interesting
read it.
in terms of benchmarking. She sent a copy, we can send it to everybody else to take a look at in terms of what Branford included in their tree ordinance.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
So we can give that to, who would be the person to? Tim probably would scan that and give that to everybody.
Oh, we can forward it on, or
Okay.
Diane can forward it to everybody.
Okay.
Right.
Or I can forward it, I mean, you have it also.
Yes, I do, yeah, I can do
Who
that.
would, you'll do
I'll
that?
take that as an action item, I'll
Okay.
send it around to everybody.
Is there any part of it that you think is important that you might want to highlight in it that we can focus on that is more relevant?
So we've looked at several different communities have done in terms of tree ordinances or what they've proposed. and each one of them has some ideas that seem to be good ideas to include. I don't see that there's one that's perfect, but there's one that each one seems to have something that we hadn't thought of before. It might be a good thing to include in it. So I think it's going to come down to reading several of these different ordinances and then coming up with the short list of things we would like to see included in it,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't become too complex.
Okay, so a work in progress.
Yes.
The next item is Audubon Society Woodbridge Country Club Habitat Assessment.
I think we skipped over the pollinator pathway
Oh.
grant update. Did we?
Um,
No.
oh, yes, we did, because that was on, I'm doing this from the draft agenda, and
Oh,
that was
okay.
added. So, yeah, so pollinator pathway, grant update. Does anyone have anything, information about that?
Yes, so I started to talk about this last meeting, but it wasn't really on the agenda. We didn't have time for it, I think. But I reached out to the person who is the farmer at Massaro Farm, because Massaro Farm has a pollinator pathway grant, or pollinator grant, I should say, and they get their grant through NRCS, National Resources Conservation Service. And it's the way they described the grant was it pays half of the plants that are going to be planted, and then it's the responsibility of the party receiving the grant to pay the other half of the cost of the plants and to also plant them. So, you know, one thing you mentioned that you had worked with some of the kids at Beecher Road School and perhaps even maybe the Boy Scouts or so forth. So it would be something where we'd have to get a group to work with us to actually probably do the plants, and it could be a community program probably for maybe even kids at the high school or something like that. But that was something we learned, is that in talking to the fellow from Massaro Farm, was that it's not just a grant where they give you everything and it just happens. It buys half of the plants, or pays for half of the plants. Then the people receiving the grant would pay for the other half of it, and they would also be responsible for finding somebody to plant them too.
Yeah, and that's a big job, to prepare the land and find the land. And
Right.
I think that the piece of land actually right on Center Road across from our house, the land trust is taking on and possibly trying to create a pollinator pathway from there, and it might be worth talking to land trust about this grant, because I think they're
Right.
already in action about doing some of that with high school students.
So I heard back from the person from NRCS, and she indicated that they did have grants like this available. So I just need to follow up with her to get some more of the details.
Paul, do you know approximately the size of the grant?
Oh, the dollar amounts? I don't know. We didn't talk about that. I could ask. I mean, I don't think they're huge dollar amounts.
Oh, I don't think so either, but there may be a variety also.
There's probably a range too, right?
Right.
So that's something that I can follow up when I speak to her. It's the person at NRCS in Hamden that's responsible for this area.
Okay.
And Paul, I would love to work with you on that, because we are that's our focus on our 4-H program, is
Okay.
the pollinator pathway. And in fact, we're working with Farmer Steve this summer, and we're doing pollinator pathway on
At Massaro
open
Farm.
farm
Okay,
days.
great.
So our 4-Hers presented to the land trust a couple weeks ago to get some money and some signage for pollinator pathway for the garden at Woodbridge. But the 4-Hers in Woodbridge are specifically, they got the proclamation so that Woodbridge was even added to the pathway, because they weren't on it. And now our kids are literally mapping, so when they had the garden club meeting in November about the pollinator pathway, we all filled out if we wanted to be have our yards be part of it. Those forms our kids now have, and they're going to be doing a mapping project where they start to connect all of the spots on Woodbridge that have you know, are the part of the pathway. So like Beecher's gonna have signage, obviously the gardens will have signage, but we'll start kind of mapping that out, and we're working with Farmer Steve to do that too. There's actually, for the Northeast Pollinator Pathway, which we're part of, and certainly the Connecticut Pollinator Pathway, there are tours. And
Did you guys get funding from somebody or?
so no, this is all like very grassroots. The kids are doing it as part of their
Okay,
project.
in their own yards?
So they've done it in their own yards. They're doing community outreach. So like on their farm days at Macero this summer, they're literally going to talk about their project and how they were able to get Woodbridge added to the pollinator pathway, and that now they're going to be asking people coming to pick up their produce, you know, do you have pollinator plants? Would you like to know how to make your yard considered a pollinator pathway friendly yard? And they're going to be doing that whole outreach, and if the people sign that they want on it, you know, they can pay $10 and get a placard for their yard stating that it is such, and the kids will add their address. So eventually we just envision 3 years from now, these kids are now in high school and they've mapped all of Woodbridge in these corridors. So kind of like what you've done with the Greenway, you know, there'll be a pollinator Greenway that would be really lovely, that we can see and boast, you know, this beautiful thing.
Right.
But even more so when we build these gardens, like in public spaces, that they're something that really shine, and people literally get in their cars and on a Saturday will go tour to different towns that have these noteworthy pathway gardens to look at.
That's great.
So that's what we're hoping to put Woodbridge really on the map, like literally and figuratively, but you know.
Well, the idea where this came from was the Audubon study for the former country club property, was that they, in part of that study, they recommended there could be some pollinator improvements, and they recommended what some of those recommendations were. And so our thought was maybe we could find a grant that would help us toward that, and if we could get 4-H or
It's a
the
Girl Scouts, Boy
Girl
Scouts,
exactly,
4-H,
yeah.
there's so many, and even the environmental, there's the AP environmental science program at the high school right now, and it's such a hot topic that you would have,
a lot of volunteers.
if we were able to coordinate, you know, a lot of young people that are able to really put some muscle into that, you know, and they're excited about it because it's really important.
Maybe you and
know?
Paul should have a meeting and talk about how the Conservation Commission can synergistically work with, or the kids can synergistically work with us to make it a more viable thing.
I
So I
can
think
say
the
just
grant-
where this started, it would be really helpful if, like, Garden Club of Woodbridge, the Land Trust, if we could kind of pool together sort of all the entities in town that are almost like, the buzzword is pollinator pathway, like it's in their purview, and they're doing something, and, 'cause like, if we could just kind of like get everybody sort of under the same tent, what we could get done would be so much more than what my little 4-H group could do, or, you know, what you're doing over here, you know, like,
Right.
because we're all doing the same things,
No, I
but we
think
don't
that's
really
great.
know.
I mean, my thought was if we were able to get the grant, we would need labor, but it sounds like getting labor to plant the plants isn't probably going to be a big problem then.
Yeah, no. Some towns have started like a pollinator pathway, you know, Guilford pollinator pathway.
So it's
Woodbridge,
coming,
so
we have it here, like, the kids made a website,
Perfect.
but, so pollinatorpathway.org is the, you know, the entity
Yep.
for Connecticut. It will be, so like, hopefully very soon, I think it's in its approval process, it'll go, when people go on, we're not sure where it's gonna be, cause in some towns it lives on the library homepage, or the town hall homepage. But that's where we need to find out, like, where is it gonna live when you search Woodbridge's pollinator pathway? And then that will open up a whole thing, and it, you know, the garden club would be linked into it, or we could be linked into it, all of these things. But that's the superhighway thing that kids are really good at, you know, the tech of being able to figure that out better than some of us older people. You know, they're like, oh, it makes sense to just click, 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 and, you know, everything is like, the synergy is happening, you know?
Sure. So I'll take it as an action item to follow up with the person from NRCS and get some more specifics about what the grant, you know, how we would go about getting the grant, how big they are in terms of dollar value, and some of the
Grants are also
details.
And sometimes they have
the
youth.
community match grants also through the Sustainable Connecticut program.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so you can, that's like a crowdfunding one, so you set your project budget and then you have to crowdfund for half of it and they'll match the other half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I know when Betsy was here, you know, and we started the 4-H, she was like super excited and was hoping that we could almost make Center Road, you know, like how there's a lot of ugly, all kinds of stuff that we go by your house, it's beautiful,
Not
and then you
weeds.
walk the road and it's not so beautiful.
Knotweed all along.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
how's
But
that
kids, if we could get that Center Road, you know, get that under control
Revitalize,
and
yeah.
then replace it with pollinator pathway, native plants, that could just be really, really something.
You know what occurred to me is that the garden club, for instance, is very much in the center of this or involved in it,
yeah.
et cetera,
yeah.
et cetera. But the various gardens that they take care of around, like in front of the library.
They should all have
and
a
in front of,
stake, yeah.
you know, in the crossroad down here, et cetera, do not emphasize the pollinator plants.
Right,
And
or
I
the
think it's
natives.
something that the garden club should really think
Yeah.
about with their
Yeah.
planting.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
they
it's
haven't,
a controversial topic in most garden clubs because it's not, they're not, they
They're
don't
not
have
as pretty enough.
it's not the sole focus is not necessarily like the native pollinator, but just, you know,
But a lot of our
garden
garden
variety.
Should
clubs.
be
I
safe
agree.
fo-
I know, I know.
it should be
It's a hot topic.
So
But
what I'm hearing
when I
is-
go to the garden sales, what I've always loved about, which is why I joined the Woodbridge Garden Club actually, was that these ladies are splitting their own native plants
Yeah.
from their yards and, you know, selling them, you know, at their annual sale. And it's amazing. You know, some of my healthiest plants
So
have come
can
from
but
I-
there.
my point is that, you know, there are members of the garden club, as a matter of fact, I think most of them are very interested in this, but then we have these projects like caring for these gardens and we don't cross over
Cross pollinate.
and say
Cross-pollinate.
cross-pollinate, right?
That was bad.
So let me
They get
summarize
kind of
what I'm
thorny
hearing.
about it. I'll keep it coming.
So what I'm hearing,
My apologies to anyone listening to this meeting.
well,
Puns
welcome.
have begun.
What I'm hearing is that there's a lot of potential, one, for a possible grant, two, that there might be some labor associated with that, with the kids that are excited about it, and three, what I'm hearing is there's lots of organizations that have a foothold into this that have never really communicated with each other, and maybe come October, we have a special meeting where everyone gets together, you know, representative of all those places gets together and kind of brainstorms how we can make it more of a energized thing in the town.
Yeah, and Macero even has their new gazebo or, you know, their new
Right.
little
Yeah.
building, so we could do something
Okay,
like
so would
that.
anyone wanna take that idea further?
Yeah.
You would?
Definitely.
Okay.
Joy
two of
Joy
them?
and Tim, I'm sorry, Joy and Paul look like they wanna work
So
together.
So that's another action item. Paul, you're getting yourself into quite a few action items.
Okay, I don't want to get too many, but I will follow up on the grant because I had
Okay.
already started that.
Well,
So
Joe,
bring
do
that
you
to
wanna-
closure and find out what it is. I mean, just remember the thing that kind of spurred our interest. It's kind of broadening a bit now, but was what they had identified in the Audubon report.
right. And so that
So-
might be a good place to start.
Right. I mean, all these
Okay.
things are. I think they're great. It's a longer term.
Well,
At least we
and
could
all
start
these-
somewhere.
All these groups are interested in that piece of property, so that might be a place for everyone to focus. At
Right.
least for a portion of it. Okay, so, you got that all, Kathy? That was a little complicated. Okay, shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
I think, so now Audubon Society, Woodbridge Country Club Habitat Assessment. So you too, Paul?
So that was the report that I
Right.
had circulated. And that's what's brought up the idea of the pollinator pathways, because
Uh-huh.
that was one of the improvements that I had identified in the report. It would be beneficial.
So did you send that to all of us?
I did.
So we can either find it or you could send it again and
I
maybe
can,
by,
I'd be glad to send it again,
but
too.
maybe by next meeting, we all read it so that
Mhm.
we could, is that okay with people if we read the,
So there was a section where they talked about improvements to the property, and they talked about the pollinator pathways.
okay, so
and-
that sort of dovetails in.
Right, and there's a lot of people that go use the property for birding and walking and so forth, and that's kind of what started all this.
Okay. Okay, that's another Paul. So you'll send that around, Paul?
Yes, I will.
The next item are initiatives, and it's sort of repeating some of the things we already talked about. So Diana, just to catch you up, the
Thank you.
program is next week. I know it's your husband's birthday. But some of us are bringing food, and we think there's a fair amount of interest. We're not really sure, and hopefully it will be a go. Does that summarize it adequately? And then the tree preservation proposal, Paul, you thought that Diana might have something to add?
Oh, just about the survey that you had talked about with Chris.
With Chris, yeah, sorry, I sent some emails out, I CC'd Paul and Barbara on it, today. So, we, met with Chris Sullivan, she was wonderful, very, very helpful, I thought she had some great insight, great guidance for us. We're looking to take, an approach that is hopefully, gives an opportunity for public input to say, what does the community want? What are they looking to preserve in their trees? We have some examples. I think I've sent it to most folks, but if I haven't sent it to everybody, I will after this meeting. We have, the town of Brantford has a tree preservation, ordinance that's built into their, planning and zoning, requirements. So it's nice, it's extensive, it's well researched. And I think it's an easy read, so we'll send that, or I'll send that around to everyone. Not that we're necessarily gonna take everything from there, but it's a good example for us. One thing Chris had recommended that we do was connect with Chris Sullivan, another Chris Sullivan from the Southwest Conservation District. He's the executive director. I reached out to him. He is already working with some students in the environmental club at the senior high school, so we're gonna try to connect with him to see what they're working on and how we can engage with those students. And then the other thing that she had suggested was the town has a surveying software or platform that we bought a membership to called Zoho, which I think they used for sending out public surveys previously. So she's going to send us that. We can take a look at some of the previous survey questions and develop something. And that would be an effort of outreach to, number one, try to educate the community, those who don't attend these roaring meetings. Educate folks and say, create some awareness, this is what we're talking about, and give folks an opportunity to weigh in and say yay, nay, and column C. So our goal would be to work on developing something, giving some examples that we've seen from Brookfield, from Westport, from Brantford, some ideas that we had on our commission, and at the same time send around some of those examples to other folks in town.
A question, so when you've been doing this, you just said Brantford puts it into its TP&Z. Did you find that other towns put it in their town
Sorry, put
planning
it in
and
its planning regulations, yeah, so.
So I'm wondering if we
yes,
should
Westport
start
did-
communicating with town planning and zoning that we're thinking of this and what input do they have and get them on board to get them interested in it, so that once we aren't presenting it like 80% done and they're, feel
The
like
town,
it's-
the planning and zoning department, you mean in
Yeah.
the town?
Commission.
The
Oh, the
commission.
commission,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Would that be under TP&Z, or would we have some kind of jurisdiction under our committee? Would
We
that
don't-
be part of?
I haven't noticed.
I
if
think
anyone
we would
jurisdiction
recommend
on
it.
anything.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we would recommend it to them, what we think should it be included in it, and would be their responsibility for adopting it, and then the building department for enforcing it
Enforcing
probably.
So maybe
And that's the
So would it be part of our
because you've been
dialogue and
told
discussion when we're looking at open
there's no
space?
enforcing.
Sorry,
That's-
so it would be for similar to the discussion about, the 10% for open space. This would also be, recommendations, or guidelines for, development or or new construction or wherever it fits appropriately. Not just to call out one type of project. And there's the idea is that everything goes exactly the way you want, but that never.
So do you think that,
No.
you and
There's
Paul-
exceptions, basically.
Do you think you and Paul and maybe Tim meet with 2 or 3 people from TP&Z when we're further along to give them like this breadth of what different ordinances are saying and how they can imagine even beginning to take it on? Because if they aren't invested,
Yeah, if they're not on
we're
board.
not
But
gonna
if
get
there's
there.
no resources, you were saying, Paul, about, or somebody
Well,
mentioned
TP&Z
something
wants it
about
to-
there's no enforcement, then, regulations are useless, right? If there's nothing enforcing.
No.
them,
There's not
right?
no enforcement capability. No. Sorry. And so maybe it helps, like when we're finally ready to have the conversation, it would help if everybody read one of them to see one of the examples from the town to see exactly how it does fit into local government. Whose charge is it? It's not about zoning enforcement officers going over to sites to say, oh no, you've done this wrong, or don't do that. It should be happening ahead of time when you're looking at a property and evaluating it. Before
it's
you start
structured in versus
construction, right.
punitive at the end.
So what I said
Yes.
about there was no enforcement capability, that was one of Chris's concerns, and we were trying to, whatever we come up with a recommendation, we wanted to have that be thoughtful in terms of what our recommendation was, so that whatever we do recommend is going to be something that can be implemented. So it's
Yeah.
just one of the factors we need to consider.
Right, and so where does that enforcement happen? Does it happen during
Where and
TP&Z?
how,
Does it,
and
happen?
who does it, and whole-
Right,
So like, for instance, since I'm on zoning board of appeals, I'm just thinking of a scenario, like,
Mhm.
so, usually they always come to us because they have a hardship, right?
Sure.
And it's not a financial hardship, it's a fact that usually they have a historical home that is not, the setbacks are not what we are zoned for, but
Non-conforming.
exactly, and they need to widen a driveway or do something with a septic or do
Sure.
whatever the case may be. So now there's this majestic tree, for instance, that we were preserving, but they might need to eliminate because they're trying to solve for something else.
right.
So
then
in that case,
same,
that works
same-
nicely,
yeah.
because then there's an awareness of that before we kind of can help them maybe exhaust any other options before, doing that. I'm just wondering, beyond that, I don't know that there would be much.
Yeah, I mean, just like any other hardship, it would have to be evaluated. It's not meant to be
Exactly.
obstructive.
It's not a
Right, oh, sure.
No.
Right.
cut and dry.
Obviously, if a
situation.
tree is a hazard or there's some other
Right.
thing where it's where you
Sitting
need
in
to
the middle of where you're developing.
it's the only place you
planning
can
to
put a
go.
garage, and that's where it has to go,
Right.
or things, the same kinds of things you'd consider for any kind of
Mhm.
zoning
But it would be
hardship.
considered, and that would be the
But,
new
and
thing,
that's
is it
the
would be
point,
seriously
too,
considered.
that at this point, it seems that people are often just sort of clear cut before they put a house on their property, and, it's.
Without any consideration.
Right.
Without any reservations at all, so, making people aware that
Mm-hmm.
trees that are over 12 inches in diameter, for instance, as some of these places specify, should be taken into consideration in their designs and their placements and so forth and so on. And,
So one of the things we talked about is possibly having as part of a subdivision, and a couple other people brought up a good point, is we don't want to just pick on subdivisions. It would be nice to have it be applicable throughout. So that's, kind of one thing that we have to really think through is how have these other towns implemented it? Because we have a process within town if it's a subdivision, but we don't have a process if it's a single lot development. So those are things we just have to kind of think through to make sure that what we propose is going to be workable.
Okay. So, Amity Woodbridge Historical Society, we kind of went through that already. That's in process, and Val and hopefully Tim will be
Yes.
part of that. Items of interest, to the Woodbridge Conservation Commission, updates if needed, Town Hall Group, 124 Seymour Road and 7 Forest Road. So, does anyone have anything to say about 124 Seymour Road? That's the. No?
Haven't heard of
I
it.
think it's
Yeah.
still listed.
It's
Okay.
still listed?
And I know, Paul, you wanted to speak to, 7 Forest Road?
I guess from what I understand is that town, from Tim's email that, and I see it in the Board of Selectmen minutes too, is that they approved, purchasing the property, but I think we wanna, I guess, see where things shake out, but ultimately we'd like to see a conservation easement on that property. 'Cause it is wetlands, it is part of the Greenway area too, so.
Okay, so we're re-emphasizing that we really think that the conservation easement would be a beneficial thing in terms of the environment for that small piece of land.
Right,
Do I
Okay.
understand correctly that it simply wasn't brought up at all at the selectmen's meeting?
the conservation
The
easement part,
conservation easement.
That
I'm
was
not
my-
sure.
That was my understanding from
That it
Tim's
just wasn't
response.
brought up, it
It
just-
wasn't called out
Yeah.
specifically.
So,
Okay. So
I
maybe
don't
we
know.
need to clarify that's
Yeah,
our
I wanted to
recommendation.
watch the video of the Board of Selectmen meeting to see actually what was discussed, but the website has been reimagined, and I don't know where the videos are until just a few minutes ago. So Pua told me where they put the link for the videos, and I'll take a look at that and see what was discussed, but,
Maybe send us a little
Did
text
anybody-
about it or email.
right, I will, I'll watch it, and I'll send
Okay,
everybody an
Paul,
email
we
just to
got another
summarize
video.
what was
Had
said.
anybody attended from our committee?
I think
Tim was
Tim
there.
did, I think Tim did.
Oh.
Tim was there, yes. He
Um,
said he was going.
So, now we have a last item, member comments. Who is it?
Oh, okay.
So, Val, Diana, and
Go
Paul,
ahead,
did you
you're
have a
up.
member comment too? Now, we have 10 more minutes with Kathy before she has to zip off, so I don't know if we can be that efficient.
We're
I'll
good.
just
Yes,
make
we
a quick question. You know, we were supposed to have submitted the Greenway plan to the state, and I just don't know where that's at. I was gonna watch the Board of Selectmen meeting to see if that was discussed.
I thought it was
I
supposed to be on the
believe it
last one
was,
too.
and it wasn't.
Yeah. Was it?
I believe so.
It was discussed.
I believe it was discussed and agreed upon. No?
I don't know the end result.
That's
I'm
what I
Okay.
So,
thought.
We'll,
I cannot.
So I'll
confirm
watch the
that.
Board of Selectmen meeting and report to everybody
Okay.
what was, what was discussed, or if it was discussed.
Okay. All right, great, Paul.
Val's up.
Val's up.
Yeah, there is a radio show down, I believe, in Fairfield County, and they were discussing a number of grants from the state of Connecticut for trails. And I think I heard, I don't know if it was Bethany, but there were several in Fairfield County, and I did not hear, maybe because we were in New Haven County, but is anybody aware of all of the grants that came from the state of Connecticut that were recently,
Awarded?
yes. Did anybody hear
We
about
weren't.
that? I mean, several millions of dollars of grants
Well, they're
were
doing,
given for trails.
they're doing a big, are they trying to complete that, what is it,
The bike path?
yeah, the one that goes through,
Farmington Canal one?
yeah. But they wanted to do that through the whole state, I thought.
Yeah, there was another one on the coast that they were trying to do as well.
Yeah, I'm not certain
Should be
exactly
lined
what
with
it was
pollinator
for,
pathways.
but there were a
Well,
number. It sounded as if they applied, but they were for trails specifically.
It seems
and
like-
the show was Lisa Wexler. She's down in Westport.
I'll look into it this week.
Okay.
It seems like in our future, if we had a grant committee that we started to educate ourselves, it'd be good. I mean, I'm a total
Sure.
novice, but I think that if we could hook into revenue, then our ability to do stuff would be better.
Sure thing.
Diana. Okay, I got you on that for Diana.
Okay,
Great.
my comment that I wanted to make was I was informed that I don't know if we already talked about this. My apologies for being late. Coopop has they're doing the evaluations of the properties, and so they are looking for somebody from our commission to, help and be a part of that if we're interested. And of course the Historical Society inventory, they were mentioning that too. And then I believe Tim is not available to attend their next meeting, so they were looking for another one of our representatives.
And you thought you'd love to.
That's not what I was saying. I mean, I don't want us to take all the fun.
You deserve it.
Rock, paper, scissors, or
When is their meeting?
I believe it's next Monday.
The
Monday night, is it?
22nd? Thank you.
And if you can't go, I'll go.
All I heard from that is I'll go.
Sneaky.
And you'll report back to us, you'll send an email with what you
Coop
learned.
Up Monday, May 22nd, yes. Oh, it is a new website. Looks very nice.
Okay, so
6 p.m.
you guys will duke it out?
Yeah. We'll go together.
Okay, that would be good. That'd be great. Because you have more historical context than Joy.
Sure,
So-
sure.
Both, and you have more context of all sorts of things. Are we done?
Like
I
to-
just wanted to, can I just reiterate? that
Yep.
It is Connecticut to award $9 million in grants to improve trails across the state.
Wow.
Is it that it's already been awarded or that it's available?
This came out May 15th, 2023.
Does it say who's,
I'm
The-
just reading
doing
I
the
had heard it
grants?
first on a radio, but it's being written up. We can all, I think it would be great if we could all
What?
read this.
Does it
Do you
say
wanna
what
send
the
it to
$9
us?
million in state grants to be released through Connecticut Recreational Trails Program. So that might be something to work with the trails and Parks and Trails.
the rec commission?
And to send it to Andy Danzig, the trail
Yeah.
master.
It's being administered by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
Okay.
There is a 20% match. Grants may vary.
That's a very good way to use our little small amount of funds because we could get 80% more money.
I concur that we may need to have a point person so that we're not missing any opportunities for grants.
I'd say not missing all opportunities. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I'm not ready
This
to
looks like
take
it was a
that
program that was established in 2015.
Well, let's have that, table that for next month, and we can start thinking about who would want to do that, or if we can do a group, or how we can
I
start
think it's
that
an
process.
excellent idea.
Does it say when the grants are awarded?
A
Or
grant,
when the grants have to be
A
applied?
grant-
So
Or is it a-
yeah,
is it a-
you had to get it in by March 1st.
March 1st? Okay.
Yeah, so but it also said that this program was established in 2015, so I'm curious
It's
if it's
yearly.
annual
Or it's a rolling sort of thing.
something. Yeah, it doesn't
So
look like
we
it's
should-
rolling because it had a hard deadline, but
yeah,
If
but we
it-
need
Did
a
you say
grant
March
ambassador.
1st or 31st?
March
First.
1st, 2023, so.
Well,
They
if
have
we had
quite a
till
few.
March 1st, 2024, we might even have time to really get it together.
Sure.
Yeah, there's quite a few that have, right around
Okay.
here that have already applied.
Val, could you send a link to that article?
I can send a link
Okay,
to the page.
Yeah, I'll send
that'd be great.
Okay, so should we review this at all? Paul, you're gonna do NRCS, you're gonna do Brantford Tree Ordinance, or maybe that's Diana, you're gonna do matching grant crowd fund match? No, is that true? And you're gonna send the Audubon
Study.
report?
Right.
And there was one other thing.
I'm gonna follow up with the NRCS person to find out what the specifics are with
Okay.
respect to the grant. I'm also going to send out the Audubon study to everybody. I'm gonna watch the Board of Selectmen meeting to see what was discussed with
Great.
respect to this 7 Forest Road in terms of conservation easement, no conservation easement, or what was
Okay.
discussed.
And I'm gonna make sure the jumping worm program happens, make sure we have food and all the supplies for it, and I'll be there early. And we're gonna see if Tim can get it recorded. What else are we gonna do? You and Valerie are gonna talk to Tim about the Historical Society thing. And Diana, you were gonna send out the Branford,
The ordinances that
The
we've had
ordinance.
already, yep, from Brantford,
Joy, you were-
Brookfield, and
gonna go to the Coop meeting, you're gonna go to the Coop
We're
meeting.
going to the Coop meeting. I just told Nicole we're going.
You got us committed.
We're committed.
all right.
And, there was something else you were gonna do about the
No
pollinator
regrets.
pathway. And I'm gonna talk to the land trust about the
Paul
pollinator
was
pathway
gonna
too.
find out about that SRC funds, is that right? For
Right, the
pollinator-
NRCS
NRCS.
And-
grants.
The
Yeah.
two ideas that we should talk to Tim about and talk about more is maybe like a grant committee or grant ambassador, so that we can start to really do that, and possibly getting people together from all the different
So,
organizations
yeah,
to talk
so-
about a pollinator.
So the pollinator
Umbrella.
umbrella, I'm gonna
Pollinator partnership.
I'm gonna really think about
People-
that,
Okay.
just because we're already in that space and I'm already got my kind of tentacles out to multiple
Do you wanna
things.
talk to Tim about putting yourself on the agenda next month to talk to us
Sure,
about it?
yeah, and, cause by then, what is next month, June 15th, right? And there's no way I can participate from the road, I will be in Maine.
Yeah, I will not be at the June 15th
Yeah,
meeting.
No, I won't either.
Maybe we need
Maybe
to
we
change
could-
that meeting.
Yeah, I can do a week earlier than that, but my daughter will be going.
Yeah, once the kids are out of school, we're gone, so we're,
Sounds good.
For the whole summer? Or?
no, just for the couple weeks in June.
So, should
Okay.
we talk to Tim about changing the meeting to the week before?
Yeah.
Which would be the 7th or something? What, can
June
anyone
7th.
look at that
It
date?
would be June
Practically
8th.
tomorrow.
June 8th? June 8th meeting. Okay, so Tim gets that, he gets TP, oh, and also coordinating with TP and Z with the land thing,
Yes.
with the tree thing. Okay, does anyone wanna adjourn this meeting?
Like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got you out of here, 8:28.